April 30th, 1803. The U.S. buys the Louisiana Territory from France for $15 million, a bucket of crawdads, and a little flash of Jefferson's nipple. Welcome to The Revisionists, the show where three comics try to punch up history. I'm Brian Flynn.
I'm Zach Powers.
Sorry, I was celebrating not fucking up the introduction.
He literally raised his fists into the air.
It was a beautiful moment.
Exactly. Good night, everyone. The Olympic spirit triumphs once again.
Congratulations on turning 28 and being able to speak a complete sentence, finally.
Our guest tonight is a fantastic Denver comic and the co-host of the Broadcast Geeks podcast, Nate Balding.
Hello.
Thank you for being here, Nate.
Yeah, no, excellent. Excellent to be here.
If you're not familiar with the show, each episode we take a different topic from history. Mm-hmm. One person presents a true story, which will be Nate this episode, and one person comes up with an alternate history. And the winning story becomes our accepted history going forward. Last week, this is, I think, a first. The audience voting overturned my vote in the episode.
Oh, wow.
And Zach's alternate history of King George III was the winner.
Yeah, I got a perfect record, motherfucker.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I've never lost an alternate history.
I feel like alternate history tends to win.
Yeah,
I'd say it's 75-25. Yeah,
I wanted to. I felt like I wanted to try and take the challenge.
Well, you picked a tough topic, I gotta say, because Brian and I have not made it a secret that we are not the biggest fans of old TJ.
Yeah. I was listening to King George on the way over here, and also I did listen to Franklin earlier, and it didn't seem like you guys had much love for Tommy Jeffs.
Well, we'll get into it when we get to the horrific things he did.
To the slave holding and sexual assault that he committed.
2 big strikes. I don't even need a third one. When those are the first 2?
Yep. Don't even need a third one, but still anti-federalist.
Yeah.
So.
Right. Well, I mean,
that's more personal
baseball rules. This is America.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. Baseball rules.
Yeah. If we can't comport ourselves in our law according to the fictional realities of a sporting event
invented by a man named Abner,
then I don't want to live here.
The rules of baseball be described as fictional realities.
Well, they're
certainly not natural realities.
They're as real as the rules of Dungeons and Dragons.
I guess that's technically true.
I mean, but those are like the rules are. I don't know, actually. I may have changed my mind about this while I'm thinking this sentence out.
All I know is there's nothing in the rule book about a dog playing Dungeons and Dragons.
Yep, you can role play as whatever you want. That's the magic of
Yeah, our friend John literally role plays as a dog in our game.
Yeah, well, I mean, if there was a commissioner of Dungeons and Dragons, I'm sure that would be outlawed until such time as the players' union
I don't like
could
this.
figure out a way to get away from the strike.
Dungeons and Dragons, Dungeons and Dystopia that you're slinging at us.
God damn it.
I believe you're talking about Shadowrun now.
Well, it's the cyberpunk vision. Well, I think if we're all ready to begin.
All right, Thomas Jefferson. Here we go. I really wanted to try and do this in a Dan Carlin kind of stilted but authoritative quiet tone, and then I tried doing that, and about 30 seconds in it became Rod Serling. So I'm just not going to try it.
I think that's a pretty solid choice,
I'm also
too.
fine with that. Yeah.
Well,
especially if you're doing the alternate. I would like it if every week the real person did a Dan Carlin and the alternate person
did a Rod Serling.
We'll work on that.
Yeah.
We'll give people another thing to try to work on in a week.
That's right. Signpost up ahead. The Revisionists. All right, well,
smoking indoors.
Yeah, you can't see it at home, listeners, but when we record this, there's always a giant eyeball floating by.
Yeah. It's great.
Yeah.
There's 2 large windows, for sniping at people who are trying to peel back the veil and show you the true history of this country and other countries, I guess, have been discussed.
Hi, I'm Howard Zinn.
They were for sniping. I did not realize that. Is that why they pulled them out of the show after the JFK assassination? Too topical.
Too topical with the most obscure reference possible.
People didn't want to see windows after that.
No.
It reminded them.
Every window was boarded up until Nixon, basically.
All right, anyway, Thomas Jefferson was born in the traditional fashion, born of woman, traditional.
So not from his mother's womb, untimely ripped.
No, and no one died during childbirth. It was an inauspicious birth. He was the third of 10. And as any psychologist can tell you, the first child is showered with love. The second child is usually not cared for.
Trickle down love.
The third child is babied, and the 7 other children are a colonial redundancy program. So he was born before it would have not mattered. But we can probably assume cared for. He went to he had a fairly prestigious education, actually. Well educated in the arts, in Greek and Latin. He's not a dumb guy.
Okay. You know what? I'm going to give him that much.
Yeah. We'll say
everything I've read about him indicates that he was not a dumb guy.
Which makes it somehow worse, I think.
No, it definitely does. Because he's a man who was able to embrace Enlightenment principles and reason and logic and come to a lot of very interesting conclusions that are, theoretically very good for everybody.
He had a lot of halfway steps.
Yeah. But not always fulfilling the promises of his own creation.
He talked a big game. He talked a big game.
He's all about men being born equal. Maybe not women.
And maybe not some men.
and maybe not after the born part did the equality continue to sustain.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, sort of like it's a very Republican sort of outlook, to be honest with you.
He was straddling both Democrat and Republican because at the time that was the party.
Yes,
Democrat Republicans. Amazingly,
kind of a
which makes it
very confusing for the lazy students of today.
It makes it weird to think because it makes politics feel even more insular now when you're like, we lost an entire half of a party at one point.
I also feel like a party today couldn't get away with having a hyphen in its name.
No, well, you could, but it would be considered some sort of bullshit feminist liberal arts party.
Liberal arts
party. You're gonna hyphenate your last name. Why don't you just take the man's name? Just take his fucking name. Or Hispanic. It could be a Hispanic party. They're generally speaking, will take both the mother and father's last name.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, maybe there was. You could probably pitch it to like sort of a conservative group if there were like a merger between two really corporate parties.
You mean the Democrats and Republicans?
Sure. Coming back to the Democratic Republican Party.
Bernie Sanders, 2016.
Yeah, maybe he'll get Jill Stein on the ticket. We'll see. Probably not.
Probably not.
I don't see it
at this point might not get on the ticket.
Probably not getting the nomination. This comes out Saturday, so we don't know, man. Maybe something happens in the interim.
Yeah. If you're listening in the future, don't spoil it for us. We're all looking forward to finding out on our own.
We all get text messages all of a sudden. You were right. Hillary Clinton gets the nomination.
You know what? Honestly, if you can travel through time, come back, fix it.
Yeah, don't just spoil. Don't be like early edition.
Mm-hmm.
That's a dick move, man. Sending information back through, but only information
related to crimes you have to stop now.
Yeah, and you know what? One day is just not a workable timetable to stop a major like terrorist attack or something.
Yeah.
No, I mean, it takes more than a day to waterboard someone, I feel like. And that's the only way I know how to stop terrorism.
I don't know how you're waterboarding somebody, but it sounds really inefficient.
So, anyway, grows up. He's all about Enlightenment ideals. He's the youngest member to be a delegate. He comes from Virginia to be a delegate at the Second Continental Congress, where they eventually drafted the Declaration of Independence. He is largely, and the Articles of Confederacy. He's largely responsible for having written, doing the actual writing of the Declaration of Independence. It was a commission of 5, which I believe included John Adams, who lobbied for Jefferson to be the writer as a man of words. He had once told Adams that he could not live in a world without books. At one point,
again, like Twilight Zone.
Yes.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, weirdly.
And his glasses broke.
So he had to invent new glasses. He had to pay Ben Franklin out the ass for some new glasses.
Exactly. Yeah.
Ben Franklin, of course, we have established, robot.
Yeah, of course. He had to pay him in what? Syphilis? Mm-hmm. That's what powered him, right?
Yes, It was powered by syphilis and dual focal lengths. You can read books from afar or a close. At one point, the Library of Congress during the Revolution was actually burned down, and Jefferson he donated 6,000 plus volumes to the library to start the replenishing project. So he
was that War of 1812 that happened?
Oh, maybe it was. No, I don't think. I think it was No, it must have been 1812. Never mind. So my information.
But still, he did that thing.
Yeah. He did that. I didn't look at dates. In my head, this all exists as one compressed.
I think the Library of Congress,
point
for the American Congress during the American Revolution,
doesn't make any sense.
A bunch of pamphlets and erotic wood carvings.
Yeah.
I like to think Nate just thinks this all happened in 1974. The height of the free love movement.
Was that the height?
I don't know.
Well, it was when they started figuring out what everyone had. They're like, you know what? I'm peeing weird. I've been fucking a lot of people for the last 7 or 8 years. Maybe we should get tested.
That was the slogan for the year 1974. Peeing weird.
73, free love. 74, peeing real weird.
The whole urine situation got crazy real quick.
Hey, the 70s were a great time for cinema and cocaine and chlamydia.
And most things that penicillin could treat.
And every color of urine you can imagine.
Exactly.
Mauve, taupe.
Chartreuse.
Some sort of neon green.
Mm-hmm.
That's Ecto Cooler.
Coming back into stores.
Yeah. So anyway, Jefferson wrote the original Declaration, and which did include some critical passages about slavery. He was very critical of the concept of slavery. He was very behind the idea that, and he penned the sentence that all men are created equal. So that was his thing that he brought. So
I mean, he hated slavery in theory, but what's he going to do? Fold his own shirts? Come on. What do you expect from him?
There was an interesting thing I read a while ago. He's
an enigmatic figure. The abolitionist slave owner.
Yeah, exactly. Well, there was a thing I read a while ago that was he wrote to someone that was I wish I was free of debt so I can get rid of my slaves. And then he just proceeds to get himself into more debt. So it's this clearly isn't a priority.
He was not the best money man.
While he was in France, because this is a little later, he was a minister to France. He was the second minister to France after Franklin. And while he was there, he developed a taste for fine wine. And then during his presidency, the White House spent, inflation adjusted, I think it was $10,000 at the time, but something like the equivalent of $190,000 now on wine imported from France.
Jesus.
And after he donated those 6,000 books, which left him without a library mostly, he started collecting again, and that immediately put him right back into debt. He was buying just shit tons of volumes of stuff with credit. Despite, again, completely opposing the idea of some sort of state debt withholding.
Totally.
He was not cool with having a centralized banking.
Well, I mean, it sounds kind of cool and intellectual to collect books, but if he had been alive during a time when Star Wars toys existed.
Right. Absolutely. Well, here's the thing. I believe, the way that Ben Franklin is the first American, Thomas Jefferson is the first American hipster. I'm positive that his book collection, I don't know how much of it he actually read. I feel like he's a real dilettante about it, but he has these books so he can bring a lady back, Like, look, I'm pretty. Look, I'm a smart guy. Look at all this.
Shelves, yeah.
He was a prodigious violinist, you know.
Oh, is that a first edition of On the Complexities of the Orbits of Celestial Bodies?
Indeed, it is. And I lost a lot of money getting that. He played the violin, and I feel like the violin was the ukulele of the colonial era. Like, had there been Misfits to cover with a violin, he would have been doing that. Like, he ended up going, while he was in France again, he met a woman, I think her name was Maria Cosway, who was also a singer and violinist, and she was married, and he ends up having a somewhat torrid affair with her. It was definitely like, hey, I'm coming here from Colonial Williamsburg, just visiting. Williamsburg. Just backpacking through Europe here.
I don't know if they called it that at the time, because
they probably didn't.
Would you like to see us kill and roast a turkey? I've never been to Colonial Williamsburg.
No. Also, this is well after Colonial Williamsburg was Colonial Williamsburg, but from Colonial Williamsburg to Williamsburg, Brooklyn.
I think you may be onto something with this hipster thing, because I've also heard that Thomas Jefferson was famous for his odd style of dress. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Like, he had ill-fitting and outdated clothes that were loud and colorful.
He was all about receiving dignitaries, like, basically underdressed. Like, he wouldn't wear shoes and shit. He was just like, hey, welcome to Monticello. Fucking have a seat on the beanbag chair.
It's the shitty impromptu loft party of the colonial period.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'll have Sally rustle up some hash.
Yeah.
That was the other thing, too. Like, he's I feel like all of his abolition leanings is just a way for, like, he's just fetishizing black women.
Yeah.
Like, that's all he's trying to get into. Like, the way that like young hip dudes will be like, they'll talk about themselves as being feminists or they're totally
but
not.
But in practice, they don't give a fuck.
Yeah,
to Thomas Jefferson.
All about just spouting off to try and get laid.
Hey,
not
I hate
that
slavery as much as the next guy. Sally, come in here.
Yeah. Invent a record player so I can play the National.
Yeah.
Little known fact, Monticello was named after his alt band he had in high school. Which had 6 violinists. It was crazy.
And no drums, for they were the tool of the Indian.
The original Northwest Ordinance included 9 different colonies because he knew eventually one of them was going to have Saddle Creek Records.
I made this Bible, but I took all the miracles out because I'm like spiritual, but not
really religious. Yeah, no, this guy's full on. He should have like half of his head shaved for no reason and like a bad tattoo of an eagle carrying a heart on his chest.
You know what? I don't like him, but if that's what he looks like, I'd be okay with him being on money.
He invented the V-neck, actually. Yeah. Just so he could show off his sweet eagle heart tattoo.
Yeah. So, he's, he did fight piracy. That's one sweet thing that he did with his presidency. He fought the first of the Barbary Wars against the Ottoman corsairs. They would harry American merchant vessels in the Mediterranean. He was like, we're not going to pay tribute, okay? It's not 1750.
It's 1790s.
Yeah. It's slightly later.
Or 1800, I guess. Was when it was
yeah. But the first Barbary War was sort of a failure. They ended up, they sent 3 ships, 3 major ships that were part of the larger sailing unit, which was the Philadelphia, the President, and the Enterprise.
Nice.
And not
the USS 1701, not the 1701A.
Oh, okay. Wait, that's the Scott Bakula one, right?
I think so.
Okay. I'm nerdy enough to know the actor, but not enough to know the call sign.
But the Philadelphia ran aground at some point, and the captain could not free it from this reef. It got taken, and all the crew was sold into slavery. If this is white slavery,
not.
If the KKK ever gets a hold of this information, they'll point to that as reparations.
Oh God!
They're like, well, white people were slaves too at one point in our country's history.
Your
one
impression
time
of the KKK is
it's the same impression I do for everybody.
It's basically a hipster.
Yeah.
Also.
I have one impression, and it's just that voice.
Hate was so much cooler before the internet.
Yeah.
And everyone could do it without knowing they're doing it.
I feel like the KKK probably drinks a lot of PBR, and they do refer to themselves as the Grand Dragon.
Yeah, no, they're a pretty hip group. One of the other things that was super hipstery that I thought, Jefferson's his legal mentor, I can't think of the guy's first name, but his last name is wife, did not use capital letters, and so Jefferson adopted the writing style of not using capital letters.
Was his first name E.E.?
No, unfortunately. It was, E.E. Cummings did not invent not using capitals, but he did get punctuation right out of there. So
sure.
He can still lay claim to that. But yeah, it was another like, I'm just doing this because it's what I feel like in my soul. Why would I capitalize something? Capitals!
Oh, hey, an affectation.
Yeah.
Why are some words more important than others, man? Think about it.
Just because they're at the beginning, just because they're the first, why does that make...
But no, follow your rules
Newton
of
said
language.
that they may be giants and we might be pygmies, but we're standing on the shoulders of giants and we can see further.
You want some mead? I brewed it myself.
Yeah.
This might be too late for mead. I don't know.
How about
No, he'd have his
mead.
hip French wine that he imported.
Yeah.
It's imported French wine.
To be fair, though, the American wine at the time probably fucking sucked.
Yeah, I
It's
know.
like a barrel of clams or whatever we had on hand.
It was probably, fermented trough water. Like, there's not a lot going on. But yeah, no, he's, Jefferson is, definitely the home brewing, fucking scarf wearing Williamsburg hipster of yesteryear.
Lazy Susan inventing.
Yeah.
Baked Alaska making. Those are it's only two dumbwaiter.
He improved on the polygraph, the thing that allows you to write, and it will write several other things at
I
the
like
same
that
time.
slaves weren't enough. He had to do a lazy Susan.
Yeah.
It's on the other side of the table. She's in the other room.
Well, this is a guy that, you would arrive in your regalia with your entourage at the door, and he'd answer it in, like, striped socks and just suspenders.
And like a who farted blouse.
Yeah. He'd be like, just come on in. Let's commiserate and knock out some trade treaties.
Play some Settlers.
Literally.
Yeah. Settlers of the Louisiana Purchase. Yeah. He did introduce Meriwether Lewis to the American Philosophical Society. And then, of course, we come towards the end after the death of his wife, which was actually predates him even being minister to France. He was getting together with his slave Sally Hemings.
Yes.
It
was a good. I believe she was about 15, and he was about 45 years old.
Yeah.
And interestingly, Sally Hemings was like his dead wife's like half sister.
Yes. He inherited those slaves from his father-in-law.
Also, not a great guy, hence the half-sister who's a slave.
Who was definitely also, had many relations with his own slaves. So, it's all about this equality thing. But like I said, this dude's he's totally unwilling to subvert his own slaveholding for the principles that he required of everyone else.
But, it's so easy to write principles on paper. Have you ever tried living by them?
Yeah.
Died on the 4th of July like a goddamn patriot. Although, had the Illuminati had their way, he would have died on 9/11, presaging the more important of the American
revolution
holidays.
the revolution spearheaded by George W. Bush.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Same day.
History has yet to decide on his presidency. We'll call it
quote unquote ? Presidency. Died on the same day as John Adams.
The last two founding fathers.
Yes.
Or the last two prominent ones, at least.
Yeah. And John Adams famously, supposedly said, at least Jefferson lives. It was 5 hours or so after Jefferson had already died. And everyone in the South was like, they're just trying to cover up Thomas Jefferson's legacy.
Yeah. Fucking.
I'm going to get in a car and drive around a goddamn oval for a while.
The South, proudly never changing.
Let this go. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Even from the field. They had NASCAR back then.
Yeah.
It was NASCAR.
Sure.
Yeah. I hated myself as it came out of my mouth.
No, that's I like that a lot. Here's a fun aside. There's a great episode of Bonanza directed by Robert Altman, and there's a moment in it where Michael Landon is he's gone into town to put some money in the bank, and he runs into one of his other teenage friends who just got a new stagecoach. And he's talking about the sweet new lanterns he's going to put on it. It's pure teenage drive-in drag race dialogue in the middle of a Bonanza episode. It's great. And I like the import version, the spoiler-ready palanquin. Awesomely, his vice president Aaron Burr famously shot Thomas Jefferson's enemy Alexander Hamilton. Killed him, went to trial. Well, and then this is the thing. Remember when everyone was
vice president for a minute?
Yeah,
and then Thomas Jefferson was
for
like
4 years.
Yeah, but Thomas Jefferson was like, we aren't going to do that thing anymore where the second place winner gets to be the VP.
You ruined it, Burr. You killed a man.
You shot that guy.
Granted, this system sucked to begin with, right? But still.
I feel like it all works out for Jefferson, though. He gets Hamilton out of the way. Burr's not in line anymore.
Exactly.
Who was the second vice president? Madison, probably.
George Clinton.
George Clinton.
Not Parliament.
No, but presaging.
It was called Congress at the time.
Sure.
Presaging a funkier world. I feel like Aaron Burr being
Senate in the mothership for a while.
Exactly. Aaron Burr being VP. I feel like It shouldn't have been that weird that Dick Cheney shot that guy in the head. Like there's a legacy attached to vice presidency. If Joe Biden shoots a guy in the street, like Donald Trump plans to, I think that's okay.
I feel like if Joe Biden shoots
every vice president
while playing cops and robbers with his friend,
every vice president should get one. Is what you're saying?
Yeah, that's right. Exactly.
That's what they get for not being president.
Yeah, I mean, you can't do shit in the office, but you get one free shooting.
You get one free shooting, and you could use it to kill the president, but will you? Do you have it in
I
you?
like this game of cat and mouse.
Because you know that the next guy is also going to get one shot. And he's not even an elected official.
That's how we had 10 presidents in a month.
Yeah.
And if you fuck it up, the president gets to poison you.
Yeah, we should. It's like Russian roulette.
You know what, guys? I think even if he could, I don't think Biden would shoot Obama.
No, I don't think so.
He would never shoot Obama.
I mean, they're high five pals, aren't they?
Except on accident.
Right. That could occur. He's screwing around with the cell phone that turns into a gun.
Got this 3D printed. Just cleaning her off. Of course she's loaded. What good would she be if she weren't?
I feel like Joe Biden, the most likely way Joe Biden dies, like trying to make Pop-Tarts in the bathtub or something like that.
He's got it. I'm picturing it bungee corded to duct tape. There's a toaster.
Well, Skinner displaying.
Yeah.
This is not a vision of Joe Biden that actually corresponds with reality, I should say.
No, not at all. This is Joe Biden 8 years on after the vice presidency.
And I feel like when this happens, he's at the White House, but he wasn't invited.
Yeah, no, he never leaves. That's the thing. He just chills.
Or he chases his remote control BB-8 off a cliff. Nate, thank you for the story of Thomas Jefferson.
Yeah, no, that was definitely 100% the story of Thomas Jefferson. There are no other things to add except for the fact that perhaps it's, we should start thinking more about the American-Morocco Friendship Treaty.
Yeah.
Which sounds like Thomas Jefferson's hipster band.
Yep. No, it's absolutely.
That's like a super group.
Sorry, I'm still thinking about Joe Biden taking a bath at the White House and trying to make Pop-Tarts in like the tub where Lincoln once bathed. He can't do it at home because his hot water doesn't work ever since that incident with the firecrackers.
Right. Well,
and he can't light the pilot anymore, not after that time.
Yeah. But he can't do it in the Taft tub because he can't reach anything.
And he's like, ew, fat guy was in here. I can't be in here.
No fat presidents. He's got a bumper sticker.
Yeah. No fat taps.
That's now all I want is to see Trump do a motorcycle tour with a shirt that says no fatties on the back. It's a picture of Taft with a circle and a line through it.
Just like, I'm doing everything I can to not get elected.
Yeah.
I made a mistake in doing this. Not realizing he could
That
just
sounds
drop
like
out.
the least offensive thing Trump has ever done, to be honest with you.
And he would accidentally get that sweet Sturgis vote.
Yeah, sure.
You know, the 1% of them that can vote. Not to be confused with the other 1% who really, really can't.
Yeah, I mean, if you go to Sturgis, you think you're hearing bird calls. It's actually the collective beep of ankle monitors going off at the same time. Well,
by the way, if you're patched in a club, don't kill me on my way home.
Allow me to propose an alternate version of Thomas Jefferson's story, though.
Oh, please do.
Thomas Jefferson definitely was a fuckhole who was born on April 13th, 1743.
Now, by fuckhole, do you mean that he was born as a vestigial thing to be fucked until it grew into a man?
I mean it more figurative than that.
Fair enough.
What, is that a thing that exists? Is that
No,
like a
but-
weird Frog Prince thing where you fuck it till it's a dude?
That's exactly what a frog prince is.
From Frog Prince to Fuckboy. The Memoirs of Thomas Jefferson.
That's the kind of thing that Sketch should be doing these days.
His childhood was spent taking advantage of the privileges of plantation life, which is a deeply ironic sentence, I realize. He studied with private tutors and eventually went to William and Mary. He studied law, but was also well-versed in Latin, Greek, French, surgery, history, horseback riding, the occult, and pottery, among other things.
Ooh, threw the occult in there. I like that kind of.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, he did all these things. And how is one man not only well-versed in all these fields, but counter himself and hold so many seemingly hypocritical positions?
Theory. There was a lot less to learn about each of those fields in the 1700s.
Possibly.
Surgery was basically just stabbing.
Yeah.
Right.
Although, yeah, you double majored in surgery and stabbing at the same time. I mean, was it the complexities of the human mind in a troubling time, or was it something darker, perhaps? Thomas Jefferson served in the House of Burgesses, worked as a lawyer, but our story really starts at the Second Continental Congress in 1775, when they're trying to find someone to draft the Declaration of Independence. And Thomas Jefferson knows that if he does this, he'll have to... There's no way they can write this document without owning up to the great evil of slavery. This is a declaration of freedom and the rights of man. How could they not? And he really doesn't want to force himself into taking a position on that.
I'd like to interject here that I feel like in both the alternate and the real reality, we should have the thing where Ben Franklin just stripped fully nude because it was so goddamn hot.
Oh, yeah. No, of course. I mean, they all had their dicks out at some point.
Yeah.
That's why Ben Franklin invented the tiny ball fan.
Yeah, the old...
The old bag of frozen peas.
Yes. The entire Continental Congress agreed they were more creative when they were nude.
And they all agreed that it was totally fine with them, and it didn't
We'll
mean
draw
anything.
clothes on there in the portraits, but
Well, that's a real thing. That they blacked out all the windows, and they would stay inside these northeast or different places in the northeast for like days at a time, just sweating. Like there would be a profuse like taint smell after 3 days. And these dudes just sitting around in 100-degree weather,
And that would
It's all
drive any
muggy.
man to rebellion, I feel like.
sure.
At that point.
Yeah, if you didn't already hate King George.
Everything smells like taint.
Yeah.
Taxes are bad.
The libertarian ideal.
Exactly. Wash your taint and no new taxes.
Yeah. It is
Which
weird.
I agree with half of their platform.
Yeah.
There's social issues I agree with.
It is weird in Atlas Shrugged how many times she refers to taint smell.
Yeah.
Almost every page.
And of course the Fountainhead, which is largely about the taint-dick relationship. So Jefferson didn't want to be responsible for writing the Declaration of Independence, so he put forth John Adams to write it. Adams put forth Jefferson. So in the rivalry, most of the delegates side with Adams, and they say, no, Thomas Jefferson should write it. So at this point, Jefferson turns to his knowledge of surgery to find himself a way out.
I hope this is the plot of Doctor Strange.
He's going to stab his way out is what's going to happen.
He lures John Adams into his study by telling him he's going to show him his dad's really cool gun. And while he's there, he knocks him out. And at one point in his studies, Thomas Jefferson perfected a procedure for taking someone's face off.
Okay.
So Jefferson gets his first victory over John Adams by switching their faces and making John Adams, as Thomas Jefferson, write the Declaration of Independence.
Sure.
But Adams wrote a stirring document, nonetheless, and Congress ultimately cut out the portions relating to slavery because they didn't want to alienate the South. They needed them in the war. And then eventually, when that was over, Thomas Jefferson switched their faces back and was like, I won't do it again. Don't worry. And John Adams being
pretty cool about it, I guess.
was just like, okay, fool me once.
Did he give John Adams Paul Giamatti's face?
Yes, basic. Which is a fate worse than death.
So when they switched faces, were their lifelines linked, and that's why they died upon the same day?
Well, we never...
Their mortality existed as one?
Oh, that's intriguing.
Maybe. Maybe I'll talk about that in a minute. So later on, the 1780s, during the war, he's serving as the governor of the Virginia Commonwealth. And he gets word that the army of Benedict Arnold is approaching Richmond. So he needs to find a way to escape but still preserve his honor. And he happened to know that Adams, he knew that Adams was in Richmond for a hot dog inventing and eating contest.
Hot dogs, all-American food stuff? Sell tickets, raise war funds? Come on.
Yeah.
So Jefferson sends for Adams, who is skeptical but comes out of a sense of duty to the country. So while he's there, Thomas Jefferson tricks John Adams into splitting a magic fortune cookie with him that he had cursed with his powers of the occult. And they switch bodies a la Freaky Friday. And Jefferson, as Adams, runs away, leaving someone seemingly who is Thomas Jefferson in the governor's mansion. So they eventually switch back, and Adams is like, what the fuck, dude? And I made a decision at this point.
It's like, first of all, where did you get a fortune cookie? They haven't opened up a Chinese restaurant here and won't for 200 more years.
Well, Adams had use of Jefferson's body. He decided to put his foe in a corner by writing some decidedly anti-slavery statements. And he was like, okay, now Jefferson will, at the very least, have to own this when it gets back into this body. He will have to free the people he has kept enslaved. And Jefferson, when he gets his body back, just does nothing. Because, again, fuckhole. I cannot emphasize that enough. Adams was appalled that Jefferson chose a life of hypocrisy, violence, and evil over a life simply without slaves. And he was more appalled when Thomas Jefferson became his vice president in 1796. Because, again, that system was totally fucked. That would mean we would have an Obama-Romney presidency, which would be maybe the least dramatic thing to ever happen to the country.
Yeah, it might have actually worked out better currently.
Well, of course, because Joe Biden is still trying to
make
toaster strudel in a hot tub.
Well, he can get the toaster strudel to pop up, but he always fumbles the cream packet with his soapy fingers.
So he's just playing around with scissors.
In a hot tub, that's actually a new wrinkle. I like that twist. Maybe he just puts it in like a plastic bag and is like, the water will heat it.
Yeah, he's basically George Bluth.
Yeah.
Do you think there's a hot tub in the White House? I feel like there should be a hot tub in the White House.
There's a basketball court. There's got to be a hot tub.
Yeah, a sauna situation.
And I would not want to go in that hot tub, knowing the history of presidents fucking other people.
For sure. There's like, that hot tub is like 45% JFK.
There's not.
It has a Boston accent when you get into it.
Oh, this is pretty warm water.
Oh, bubbles.
There's not a hot tub on Earth that hasn't been used for sex.
That's true.
Like,
maybe there's one like in a convent somewhere.
No, even those, man. That's you want to commune with God for real. You get in a hot tub.
Adams is wary of Jefferson because, of course, of his trickery. Eventually, Thomas Jefferson decides to devote his life to more political pursuits. And he eventually repairs his relationship with John Adams. They become correspondents, if not friends. And I decided at this point, we might talk about the early republic as a different thing, so I didn't want to do too much of his presidency. But I'll cut forward to the end of his life. Jefferson and Adams have reconciled, and one night they're out cavorting, and they both pee in the same magic fountain.
I was going to say earlier you could have done the pee in the magic fountain instead of the fortune cookie, but no, there it is.
The Change-Up, starring Jason Bateman and Ryan Reynolds.
Yes.
In theaters now.
Is it, though?
There's maybe one theater.
It's revisionist history.
We've been showing The Change-Up for 3 years. This is the Citizen Kane of movies with a magic fountain in them.
Yeah. No, there's somewhere beneath this apartment complex, it's being shown to a man whose eyes have been propped open.
Yeah, that's what they're using that's what they're using at Guantanamo now.
Yeah.
Like, why are you showing me this nothing movie? I feel nothing about it. Because Jefferson, of course, felt his death coming upon him. So he had cursed the fountain with his occult powers. And this explains Thomas Jefferson's last words being, "Adams lives," which is a tragic thing, given that Adams was dying in Jefferson's body. And of course, 5 hours later, that same day, Adams' last words being, fuck." And that's the story of Thomas Jefferson. Magical trickster. The Loki of our presidents. But Zach, you're serving as judge for this episode.
Yeah, magical trickster or
Magical
creepy, overly hip guy fetishizing black bodies.
You know, I honestly am surprised you didn't treat Thomas Jefferson worse in your alternate history than you actually did. Just because it robs him of some of his glory, though. I'll go ahead and go with the alternate history. Mm-hmm. You can give the Declaration of Independence over to old Johnny Adams.
Well, and also, I didn't want to reflect too much on his enslaving of people and his abusive relationship, not to throw that word around, with Sally Hemings.
I think it qualifies.
No, not the word relationship, I mean.
Oh, I see.
But to be fair, also, I don't necessarily feel comfortable joking about that because they're horrible things that still affect people today. Mm-hmm. So.
Yeah, I think, obviously, I'll let the listeners have their say. Mm-hmm. But I'm drawn to... I'm going to go ahead and give you a vote for your alternate this time, Brian. Because I can't really, in good conscience, support real Thomas Jefferson.
I mean, this was maybe the most preordained of votes ever.
But he was a pirate fighter.
Oh, that's true. I should have incorporated that in. Well, listeners, you can cast your vote at revisionistpodcast.com. Or on Twitter or Facebook, or as we established in the previous episode, by calling me. While you're there, again, like us on Twitter, follow us on Facebook. But while you're jacked in, you should subscribe
to perusing the Matrix.
Of course. While you're on the net, you should subscribe to this podcast on iTunes or on whatever podcast service you use and review us there because that helps us out greatly.
Yeah.
Before we go, Nate, you are the co-host of Broadcast Geeks.
Broadcast Geeks, yes.
Which is a podcast about adaptations mainly of comic books.
I mean, it's just kind of about nerdy stuff. It's mostly about Marvel and DC television and movies. Mm-hmm. But we talk about comics. We talk about other things that fall into that realm. The last one we did, we had Billy Wayne Davies on because he's not into that stuff. And we never really talked about it. We mostly talked about... the nefarious Nazi origins of Disney, and then a little bit about baseball. So,
Zach, you co-host Stage of Fools podcast.
Yeah, and the episode that is coming out tomorrow is our last until at least fall, when theoretically the third season of that show airs. So,
unbelievably, the third season of The Royals on E.
Somehow, we're not happy about it either. Let's be honest.
I'm more baffled than unhappy.
Have you guys thought about just trying to do some really bizarre thing in the interim?
There's been a couple ideas bandied about, but nothing has been
just like every episode you come back and you're like, well, the Royals are still not on TV.
Or you buy the DVDs and watch them with the commentary.
Mm-hmm. No, I'm not willing to make that kind of financial investment.
Can you get British newspapers?
As of right now, we have no set plans, but it's theoretically possible there'll be something else.
And all of the episodes are up, so if you haven't listened to it, it's a real treat. But I think that does it for this episode. Nate, thank you for being here.
Yeah, for sure. Thanks for having me.
Zach, thank you as always.
Mm-hmm.
For everyone here at The Revisionist, I'm Brian Flynn.
I am Zach Powers.
Have a good night.